What's going on, everyone? Philly Insider here. Got a little bit of a late notice here. But thank you guys if you're able to tune in or if you're watching the replay on opening day, getting ready for 305. We hope you're enjoying the anticipation. Drew, how we feeling? We are less than 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not enjoying the anticipation, but it's exciting time of year for sure. It's everybody's looking forward to opening day, even if we get our hearts broken. There's still 161 more games, so
Yeah.
It seems like we're primed for a great season, though, for sure. I mean, we came out of camp relatively healthy, so that's massive. I mean, a lot of teams failed to do that, so
Yeah,
got to be feeling good about it.
definitely. Yeah, and I have a feeling we won't start out 0-5 like last year. So let's hope we can avoid that. Knock on wood. But that seems to be that seems like that was a fluke, if anything. Hopefully, early season baseball, you obviously can't judge it too much, but I mean, we did get swept out by the World Series champions, so that it is crazy to look back on that.
It felt demoralizing at that point.
Right, and
because they
won the whole thing.
Yeah, they weren't expected to do what they did last year, like at all.
No, I mean, it's pretty crazy when you win the World Series and then you have the number 4 pick and get Wyatt Langford. So
that is insane.
Roster the next year. So yeah, they definitely made out well on that front. But point being with the Phils, I mean, the opening schedule outside, obviously the Braves are not going to be easy. Like, could totally get swept out in that series if we're not careful.
Absolutely.
It's obviously a very talented baseball team. But after that, it is a little bit of a lighter schedule to start the season. So while it is early and there's going to be some randomness that occurs, you still need to take care of business and go out there and start off strong. Like, you need to go out there and not be 7 games below 500 mid-June again. Let's hope that's not the case. And granted, we know they can get out of that hole, but let's not put ourselves in that hole this year. Give yourself a chance to win the division. I really don't care if they win the division or not, but, give yourself a chance. You want to be in that mix. You want to be in that race. I think it would be healthy for the team to be in that race with some of the young guys. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at going into the first stretch of the season, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely, like you said, be nice to have that lighter schedule at the beginning of the season because, I mean, last year, I think we kind of had like a grinder of a first month of the season, like a bunch of good teams, and it killed us because our guys were starting out slow, and I don't think we had a couple guys out, like major injuries, like Bryce, obviously, but Ranger, I believe, missed the first month, and then we had, I think, one of the bullpen guys missed some time as well, but I think
started the season and then got hurt in like May.
Right.
Okay, and obviously we lost Reese right before the season, and then Derek Hall went down too, who was supposed to. Yeah,
Derek Hall was who I was thinking. Right. Yep. I mean, like, just looking at it, like, the schedule's so easy for the first month. There's no reason we shouldn't be, 8 or 9 games out above 500 against these teams. Like, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I have on the upcoming stretch, and yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of talk about the Braves series a little bit too before we get into some fun stuff here. Obviously, we got Strider on the mound tomorrow. He's going to get a warm welcome to Philadelphia. That'll be fun. I'm sure him warming up in the bullpen, he'll have a good time hearing some of the fans chatter out there. All friendly, right? Nothing but respect for the guy. I'm sure the fans are very excited to see him again. Just a class act from the Philly fans welcoming him last year into the ballpark again, like they did a couple years ago. So, yeah, that'll go over well. But no, I mean, obviously, that's a really good lineup, 1-9, and the regular season merchants. We know that.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
They may not perform in the NLDS, but they can obviously beat us in the regular season. We have had their number on opening days and opening weeks, I think, in the past like 5-6 years, I would say, because obviously you have the McCutchen leadoff home run. That series went very well the first year Harper was here. I believe the next year or the year after we played them on opening day, and I believe we won that as well. We've had some good opening day success against them. But tomorrow, I mean, it's ace against ace. Strider, Wheeler, you can't write it up any better than that on opening day. And I'm excited to see those two guys go at it. But obviously, that's going to be tough because even last year in the game the Phillies won, the first game the Phillies won, and even the second game, like, they scraped across runs. I mean, the second game they had a couple big flies, obviously, from Castellanos and Turner. But, it wasn't like they were generating a lot of runs or a lot of runner base, you should say. So that is obviously the biggest thing, I think, is Strider on the mound tomorrow. And then you have Fried and Nola Day too. Like, these are going to be these should be very competitive games and very good battles to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely, if you're a betting man, be taking the under on the run totals for the
Yeah,
next 2 days because, I mean, even if they're like 3, runs are going to be hard to come by in the first couple of days of the season because, I mean, pitchers are always a little ahead of hitters at this time of year, whether it's all the hitters or just a couple of them. It's hard to produce runs this time of year, especially against ace pitchers like Strider.
right.
And obviously, the Braves are going to be in the same boat against Wheeler. I mean, it's an exciting matchup because these guys don't get to pitch against each other a ton, especially in the postseason the last couple of years because Wheeler's been off the same or on the wild card schedule and Strider's been pitching game 1 against us.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's something to look forward to because we haven't really got a whole lot of Strider Wheeler in the last couple of years. Honestly, I don't remember any actually. Maybe like 1 or 2.
Yeah, because in the playoffs it hasn't really lined up that way either year.
Right. Yeah, I think. Did Wheeler pitch in the game that Strider pitched against us last year in the playoffs? When he came out of the bullpen?
Wheeler only came out.
Oh, no, he came out of the bullpen in the NLCS.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks game 7.
Right.
That was it. And the other game was Wheeler had already pitched game 1 of the wild card, so he didn't pitch game. He pitched game 2 of the NLCS. Unfortunately, got a loss somehow because we blew that game. Or it wasn't. Right. He didn't get a win. It wasn't that he got a loss, but obviously lost that game. Yeah, but I also want to talk about, speaking of Strider and the lineup as well, I like our lineup's chances of getting in a couple runs like against him. I certainly think that they can generate some runs, but and I'm not going to sit here and say that, I'm going to blame Rojas if we don't produce, right? 1 through 8 got to produce, but I certainly don't think that's the ideal way for him to start a season against a guy like that. That's a really tough ask on game 1. And I just want to say, like, you can't overreact if Rojas doesn't hit well tomorrow. It's day 1. He's facing one of the best pitchers in the entire game of baseball, who's pretty much, that's pretty much Rojas's kryptonite to a T. Like, that's, if you could build like the worst possible pitcher for him to face in game 1, that is it. It's Spencer Strider. So that's going to be a little bit tough. And I just wanted to bring that up because we started day 1 of this podcast, Drew, talking about potential outfield options in free agency and coming to the conclusion that a lot of those guys weren't worth signing, and instead of just giving Rojas a chance. And while I think you and me both were of the mindset that they were going to add an outfielder, they didn't. And we're sitting here, Rojas is the opening day center fielder. And as the spring went on, even though he wasn't performing well, I think that is the right move. That's where you've invested a lot of your pieces right now. Or not pieces, but that's where you've invested a lot right now into him getting that opportunity to start the season. So I'm going to have a close eye on him and just how he handles those at-bats. If he does what's expected and just goes down easy, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to really overreact to that. But, if we see him lay off a few pitches here and there or show just the slightest sign of play discipline, those are the things I'm looking for. And once we get to the bullpen, I'm curious to see how he handles those late innings, because either he's going to get pinch hit for if he doesn't produce, or he's going to have an opportunity late against a different pitcher to maybe have more success.
Right. And the big thing with like the bullpen is he's sandwiched between 2 lefties in Marsh and Schwarber. So he's going to be seeing some lefties coming out of the bullpen to try to take down Marsh and Schwarber and maybe even stretch over to Harper if they get to that point. But I think the late innings is going to be where he definitely has big chances because he's going to be facing those lefties because they're not going to bring in a righty to face Marsh and Schwarber to try to get Rojas out, obviously. Like, Minter is going to be in that game if like Marsh and Schwarber batting in the same inning.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. I feel good even if we lose tomorrow because Nola versus Fried, I feel pretty good about that because I don't really fear Fried. He hasn't really done anything against us that makes me fear him. But yeah, I think what you said about Rojas being the right decision, I totally agree with that because, you can't just, every time you need something, you can't go spend in free agency on it because that's just not how you build a successful baseball team. You have to build from within as well. They're working on that, obviously. Bohm and Stott are major league contributors that any team would love to have because, like, high value position players are hard to develop, obviously. Pitching seems to be kind of something that every team can develop a little bit nowadays because of velocity. Right. But developing hitting is definitely something the Phillies have struggled with and a lot of teams struggle with. Other than the Orioles, I think.
Yeah, and probably the Brewers too.
Yeah, they do. They do that as well.
Yeah. I wanted to say on Rojas too. I had a thought. Oh yeah, like righty lefty splits didn't really seem to matter for him last year, which is nice
No,
too. So,
yeah,
obviously you would probably prefer he faces a lefty over a righty, but
right.
that's the nice thing to where regardless of who comes in, he should be able to have a pretty not clean at bat, but he's going to have an opportunity regardless either way. But having a lefty, just anything you can do to boost those odds helps. And I will say it is interesting. We're sitting here. Opening day just happened today for Major League Baseball, and Tommy Pham, I heard 10 days ago he was negotiating with the Padres, and I haven't heard anything since then. He's still a free agent. That's shocking to me. I mean, I know he's older. I get it. And I get, what he is at this point. Like, right. There's no like high upside or high ceiling with Tommy Pham other than what he did in the playoffs last year, which that is pretty important to have. And I think he will be on a team by the year's end. I would be shocked if he didn't sign with someone. I would imagine it's just negotiation stuff right now. But who knows? Like, God forbid you get into mid-June, and I would be shocked if Tommy Pham was available at that point too. But let's say maybe he's one of those guys who decides, you know what, I'm going to kind of wait towards mid-season to sign. I don't know. Maybe that's just with his body at his age, maybe that's better for him. And Rojas isn't performing well. Maybe you have that insurance plan there, but you already have the insurance plan with Merrifield in place if that doesn't happen. So I think you're in a pretty good spot regardless. But yeah, tomorrow is going to be interesting. Again, I think you can only take so much from this first series with Rojas, but he's certainly going to be someone a lot of people are going to have eyes on. But I do think you're going to see that stadium, all three of these games, they're going to get behind him. Like the people at the stadium, they want to see a win, and they're there to root on their team. So, a lot of those people will go home the next night and they'll watch the next game and they'll be getting upset about Rojas, I'm sure. But when you're in the stadium, those people, that whole fan base is going to be behind him. And I think that adds a little bit too. But I want to get to a few of these comments here before we move forward. We'll get into this. I want to talk about first home run and a lot of that stuff, bold predictions, stuff like that. So Dylan's saying he needs that Schwarber on first at bat. That would be something. And I do wonder what Strider's going to throw Schwarber first pitch. I'm really curious to see what he comes out with because, there's going to be a lot of buildup to when he steps on that mound and on that rubber and he's ready to throw that first pitch and Schwarber's in the box. Like that fan base is going to feel, even if it doesn't happen, like they're going to feel like a Schwarber could happen on that first pitch. So the buzz is going to be unreal. Yeah. Star Wars welcome in says, let's start the season right. And Ben with a bold prediction here, Rojas taking Minter 400 feet. So put that on your bingo card for tomorrow. We'll see if we get to mark it down. But yeah, I don't know if you had anything else to say about Rojas before we move forward here, but I think we've covered a lot of that throughout the offseason, honestly. There's only so much we can talk about him at this point. Right.
And the only thing I can say about him is like they kind of gave themselves an insurance policy with Pache. Hopefully he keeps playing well. As his at-bats diminish here, he might cool down a little bit and go back to what he once was. But, it's never a bad idea for them to do what they did because ultimately Pache is probably more valuable than Jake Cave, even if you're sacrificing having that lefty bat on the bench. Because quite genuinely, Jake Cave was not a major league hitter. We all know that. Yeah, he was prime Barry Bonds in AAA, but he is nothing in the major leagues. Last year he struggled. I think he hit 211 or something like that.
Yeah, 206, something like 230. Yeah. I stopped keeping track at a certain point. It was not. It wouldn't have been nice to him to keep keeping track of that. But Major League Baseball kept track of it, unfortunately for him. So
I don't know if you saw that video of him doing that interview in the Rockies clubhouse. He seemed shocked that he didn't make the team. I don't understand how.
I get you had he had a good spring training, and obviously did last year too. I do get that, but you have a younger guy in Pache who performed. I know he cooled. Even Pache, he did have that initial first week surge, and then he cooled off a little bit. But then he had a couple good games at the end of spring to kind of solidify. I should be here.
Right, and he was hitting the ball hard.
Right, every time he got out, he was still hitting the ball hard. You're absolutely correct. So, and even if Jake Cave made the team, there was no guarantee he was going to be on the team the entire year. So I guess maybe he thought. And I don't want to be rude to the guy. Again, I have nothing against him, but I guess maybe he thought just because it did seem like the clubhouse liked him a lot. Maybe he thought that would be enough with his spring performances to get him that roster spot. And maybe he just thought because I think a lot of us thought because he was a left-handed bat, he was just going to get that spot. But you can add a left-handed bat later in the season too. There's still time for a Pache. You don't need to force a Pache trade if it's not there right now. Take your time with it. And if it doesn't come at all, I mean, I don't think you need to move him. Like, go out and maybe move some other pieces. You're going to see how things pan out. Like, there's going to be maybe an injury or another spot could open up for a left-handed bat while Pache is still here too. You don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why he would be surprised necessarily. Even if he makes it, he's the last guy. He's the 26th man. I mean, outside of the bullpen guys, that's going to be mix and match, but he's the last guy offensively. That goes without saying, in my opinion.
And they sent him to a place where he can succeed offensively, honestly. I mean, Coors is like heaven for any hitter, honestly.
Yeah, he should be happy he's there.
Yeah, he could get like a contract next year off of that or whatever. Like, I don't know how many years of arbitration he has left. I think he might be ARB 2 or something like that. But, I mean, he could add value to himself here in the next year. I mean, I don't think I'd be necessarily mad about going to Coors and getting regular playing time, which he probably will, I would assume, because the Rockies don't really have anybody. I mean, I think they have one corner outfielder. Yeah, Nolan Jones. I was just about to. But, yeah, I mean, that's actually a good comment right there. Phillies over the Orioles in the World Series. I've been seeing that a ton on Twitter.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's been floating around the past couple years, honestly, too.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to welcome in the toughest fans, too. I saw your comment on the hype video. Appreciate you, man. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in, and we're looking forward to talking some Phils with you this season. So tune in. We're live just about every week. We'll be going live probably twice a week during the season, and you can expect some post games, too. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun season.
Yeah.
Jose tuning in says, dude, I cannot wait. Is it 3 o'clock yet? Yeah, I think we're all kind of there right now for sure. So,
yeah.
And Ben, too, says, I'd be pissed if I were Cave. Exactly. Like, if you were Pache, I think you'd be more aggravated with the spring you had, unless you got traded for a real ideal you just couldn't turn down. But yeah, and go back to Cave too. It's like you're going to Coors Field where not only are you going to be able to maybe boost your value for a new contract, you could potentially get offered at the trade deadline to a contender too. Maybe not a great contender, but a team that could use a left-handed bench bat if you really hit well. Like that pop out he had to the fly out he had to end the NLCS. Maybe a home run in Coors Field. Who knows?
Yeah.
It would be a little bit of a stretch, but those are the types of things that happen over there. The ball just jumps off the bat. So
yeah, it's definitely crazy.
Yeah. And yeah, did see this. Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox run at the first pitch tomorrow. That's the right way to do it. So I'm very happy for that. And the Boombox, welcome in. Early prediction, Phils get Bieber at the deadline. So we've got some predictions flying in here, Joe. I think it's time to get in some bold predictions for this year, whether it's players on the team, stat predictions, trade predictions, World Series predictions too. I want to hear anything you got. If you got any list you want to go through, let me know, but we can start with any bold predictions you got too. Last year, my bold prediction, which, it's not really bold, was that Sosa would get double-digit home runs. Hit right on 10. I was very happy. I was on cloud 9 at the end of the year. But I mean, I don't think too many people were expecting him to hit too many home runs. But, again, like I said, though, not like a bold prediction that people are asking for. So let's get into it. What do you got?
I mean, my biggest one's definitely going to be Bohm hitting 40 doubles. I don't know. I just got that inkling about him this year. He's gonna really turn it on. I think he's gonna hit for a lot more power this year. I think we might see 25 home runs and maybe 40 doubles. He could easily be a guy that hitting in the middle of the order could have 115 RBIs if he has a really good year. I mean, batting behind Turner and Harper. So, I mean, also my breakout pick for the year for the Phils is Michael Mercado. I think everybody probably saw it on Twitter, but man, that guy is so good.
Dude, he's definitely going to pitch for the big league club at some point this year. Like, he has
yeah.
It's exciting to have like a young bullpen guy like that in the minors. Where is he set to start at any specific level? Do you know right now?
Don't think so. He's injured, right?
I think Michael Rucker is. Mercado might also be hurt too, though. I honestly don't remember.
But I thought he was going to start like maybe high A or double A. I'm not sure.
I was going to say, I remembered it being a little bit lower, but that was around where he was last year, I want to say.
Yeah. But he's a guy that could be exactly like Kerkering last year and just fly through the minor leagues and give them no choice but to promote him. So, I mean, he's my breakout candidate for sure.
Love it. We'll get to this question too before I give one. What are your thoughts on the City Connect uniforms? Well, not confirmed yet. Hopefully not official, but I mean, I think me and Drew both are not really big fans of them, to say the least. I don't want to speak for you, Drew, but
yeah, I mean they're not great, but they're not the worst. I mean, they're not just black with Baltimore written across them.
Yeah, that's true. Those ones, I won't lie, they kind of grew on me throughout the year, though.
Yeah, like the black and white's cool, but they could have done so much more, honestly.
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just too plain for me. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. So I'll get into one of my bold predictions. I don't know how bold this is, but I think there's a lot of thought that JT will have some regression this year, and I certainly won't be shocked if that does happen. But I'm going to go out on a limb here, trust that he fixed that hole in his swing this offseason. He's going to hit those down and in sinkers this year, and I'm going to say JT's going to hit 280 this year at the very least. So I feel like that's fairly bold. I never know with these. I feel like that's a good prediction to make because usually he hits around 260, 270-ish, and he's been declining. Yeah. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say he has a spike in production here as far as batting average goes. Not the most important thing, but it's one thing I want to see from him, maybe a little more consistency this year. And I think he's going to be hitting 260, 70 throughout the year. But then August, September, I think he's going to have a little bit of a surge and get hot at the end of the year at the right time.
Yeah, I think the key for him this year is going to be getting some more time off, honestly. The last few years, he's just getting rode so hard, catching so many more innings than the next guy. And come playoff time, I don't know, it just seems like he's kind of gassed a little bit. I mean, he still does productive things because he's JT, but he's not what he could be at the end of the season, I feel like. I don't know, maybe everybody else feels differently, but that's just kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's the biggest thing. If Stubbs is going to play around the same games regardless of how he plays. Even if he plays well, the Phillies aren't going to take it into account and say, oh, well, Stubbs is playing well, let's give JT a few more days off. I mean, Stubbs would have to really, really show some signs of improvement. And I think you kind of know what Stubbs is at this point. You're not expecting anything crazy from him. So it's just a matter of how much they can get away with Stubbs playing this year. And I think part of that is being in that divisional race too. Again, like I said, I don't need them to win the division. I would love it, but that's not something I'm super, super this needs to happen. But if they are in that, if they do have a much better start to the season and they have a little more cushion, you could probably get away with resting JT a little bit more. And I'm hoping that pays dividends towards the end of the year. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And I'll go back to back here before I kick it back to you. You can go back to back on your next couple of predictions. I think Brandon Marsh is winning a Gold Glove this year. I think in the corner outfield, I think in left field, he's so good out there. It really depends on if Rojas can play the full year out there, because if Marsh has to go to center field, he's not going to win a Gold Glove. He's an above average center fielder for sure. I think he's very solid out there, but he is much better in left field, and I think he's awesome in left field. So I just think with Rojas covering so much ground, it helps Marsh a lot. And also Marsh, even without Rojas out there, he just covers a lot more ground in left field because there's a lot less responsibility there. And I love the thing I love about him, just even put the Gold Glove aside that I'm predicting. I just love the excitement from him when Pache or Rojas makes a catch. He's a good teammate, and I think that's really important. He's a great clubhouse guy. He's been so much more valuable to this team in that aspect than I think people even realized he would be when he got traded here, because we just didn't know. We had no idea who this guy was with long hair and a beard coming over here. It was very much a good candidate for a fan favorite, but we were going to have to see how it developed. So, but anyway, I think Marsh is winning a Gold Glove this year. I think he's going to take more at bats as a lefty too, which is going to give him more opportunities in left field and give him the innings he needs. And I think a full year in left field, he's going to play center a little bit. I don't doubt that. But if Rojas can just hold his weight and keep Marsh in left field the whole year, I think Marsh wins a Gold Glove.
Yeah. I mean, those two, between the two of them, they could have 70 defensive runs saved this year if they both play those positions the whole season. Yeah. I mean, I put on Twitter the other day on the Insiders account. I think Rojas is going to win a Platinum Glove this year, as long as he can play the full season. I mean, it's not really a hot take because he's so good, but I mean, he's outrageous. I mean, it's going to be so fun to watch him this year. I mean, him and Marsh out there is you got two vacuum cleaners out there in the outfield. Yep. There's no gap out there in left center field with those guys out there, and it obviously helps Castellanos a lot as well because Rojas takes a lot of pressure off of him, and I think Castellanos really succeeds because of that.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you 100% on that. Castellanos, I was looking at his defensive metrics again last year, and it's not anything crazy, but he just didn't have a lot of those defensive opportunities because he had guys in center field taking charge out there. And that's the biggest thing with Rojas too, is I think he'll call up Bryson Stott or Trey Turner for a fly ball too, even if it's all the way in the infield. He'll come get it. Yeah. If he thinks that's his baseball, he's going to go get it, and he has no fear. So just being able to have that confidence and knowing this is my baseball, and knowing, I'm the captain of the outfield, and I know I'm going to catch the baseball if I call you off. Don't come near me and get away from me right now. that is huge to have a guy who just takes command like that out in the outfield. So that helps Castellanos a lot in and of itself.
Right. And going back to the Brandon Marsh thing, when we traded for him, it was like everybody was like, "Oh man, O'Hoppe for Marsh, like that was a terrible trade." Like right at first, everybody hated it, and now like everybody's looking back on it like it was probably a fair trade for both teams, and it's looking to be that way. I mean, O'Hoppe missed I think the whole season last year mostly, which is very unfortunate for him because he's obviously got very high potential. I mean, the Phillies didn't want to let him go, but Marsh is adding to the club right now where O'Hoppe would not have been. And I mean, Marsh, like you said, he went from like, who is this guy to like, he's a staple in the clubhouse and like to the fans. It's incredible to see, to be honest.
100%. Now you guys can go back if you want some enjoyment. You can go back and watch my initial reaction to the Brandon Marsh trade and the David Robertson trade. I was very upset, and I did it right when it happened, went to work, came back, and then reacted later that night. And I took a deep breath and I said, okay, I can kind of see why they did this now. I think that's how everyone was. Like, as the day progressed and we thought about it a little bit, that's how I feel like a lot of Dave Dombrowski's moves. A lot of times on paper, I don't love them at first, but then when you have a coaching staff who can get the best out of these players, or even you just think about what role a guy is going to be playing or what they're going to be asked to do. A lot of times when you think it through, you can see, okay, I see why Dave made this move now. Even if I don't fully agree with it just yet, I can see why he did it, and I could see it panning out. So that's one thing I appreciate about Dave. But yeah, if you want a little enjoyment there, you can see the diversity in those two reactions I had on that day from a couple of years ago. I was not happy. D-Rob one, I agree with Ben. I'm still upset about that one. I liked Ben Brown. He was progressing up the system. I get it. You needed some bullpen depth. They really had no one outside of Alvarado and Sir Anthony, and then they just kind of lucked into Eflin being a reliever for the playoffs that year. But after those three guys, I mean, even Eflin was shaky too. After those three guys, you didn't have much. And I get it. I get why they made the D-Rob trade, but I mean, he barely got out of that game one of the World Series. He did, but it was only because Aledmys Diaz didn't want to get hit by he wanted to get hit by a pitch and didn't want to swing the bat. So anyway, fun little aside on that trade deadline there. But any more bold predictions, Drew?
No, I think I got my couple out of the way that I've been really high on.
Okay,
glad I got that off my chest though.
Yeah, no, I think I've got the ones I needed to as well. I don't really have any major bold predictions here, but we kind of gave our win totals when we were with Alex Carr. So if you guys want to check out that episode, you can. I said 93. Drew, I think you're at 94, if I'm not mistaken. We're right around the same mark. And I think that's probably around where they're going to end up. I'm not saying that to say, oh, look, I'm right. I'm just saying I feel like that's a pretty realistic expectation, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's like I saw a prediction today that they're going to win 85 games. That's not near enough.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's on, but if that's like a bet, like you can bet on that. I mean, you could put your house on that. They're going to win more than 85 games for sure.
Yeah, hammer the over on the 85 wins if you can. I also heard Wheeler's like plus 900 to win a Cy Young. And granted, obviously if Spencer Strider is healthy the whole year, sure. I mean, that's probably where it's going. But right. I mean, Wheeler with that splitter though, as long as Wheeler stays healthy with that, and if Spencer misses a little bit of time, that's probably, I would say Wheeler's probably going to get it at that point. I mean, I think he's not going to have a 3.6 ERA this year. He's going to bounce back up again.
Yeah, I think Strider adding that curveball is also going to help him a ton.
Yeah, true.
Because he was nasty in spring training, not going to lie. But, I mean, Wheeler, he's got that potential to definitely take the Cy Young from whoever's in the running with him. I mean, whether it's Strider or whoever. I mean, Webb is obviously going to be up there as well. He's developing into a bona fide ace. He's so good.
He definitely is. Yeah, the Giants are going to be an interesting team. I was watching a little bit of that game today with the Padres. They obviously lost it, but got an interesting squad there for sure. So
yeah,
I don't know. There's a lot of interesting baseball. I was looking at the Giants today. I was like, I forgot they got Chapman, Soler. I knew they had Lee, but like they got all these guys. A lot of different pieces. That's like it'll be interesting to see how these all fit together on the same roster. And then you're going to add in Blake Snell once he gets ramped up too. So that's going to be interesting. That's another thing. We didn't talk about the Jordan Montgomery signing since the last time we were on. So 1 year with a vested option, I believe, $25 million for the first year. I believe that's correct. That's just off the top of my head, so I could be wrong. But Thoughts, Drew? I know there's going to be a lot of why didn't the Phillies do this? And of course, if he pitches well, we are going to not hear the end of it. But it just did not make sense for us ever. I
Right.
don't think, especially if you weren't going to go over the third luxury tax. And we talked about it a number of times. You're not going over it for Jordan Montgomery. He's a good pitcher. I think he's had postseason success before too. You can see that by the numbers and by what he's done. But you have to make sure you're making smart investments, and you're going to blow through it next year. And Juan Soto's on the market. I'm not saying they're going to get him, but like that's the caliber of guy we're talking about going over the luxury tax for.
Yeah, and the only way they're going to get Montgomery, like I've said before, is if they would have, by some grace of God, moved Taijuan's contract and been able to spend that money and not go over the third threshold. But I mean, nobody's going to take that contract that Taijuan's on because health concerns, obviously, and like performance concerns. I mean, last year, he was bad in the first inning and then fine after that. But I mean, ultimately, the first inning still counts toward your stats. And I mean, the runs don't not count in the first inning, and he gave up a ton last year.
I like that what Jack Fritz said at one point last year. He said, "Can we just have Taijuan just warm up in the bullpen the first inning and just get his pitches in there, and then come out for the second inning and pitch the rest of the game after that?" But even in the second inning, he also wasn't that great in the second inning either. It was the first couple sometimes. So, but on that, as we kind of wrap up here, I do want to talk about the injury report we got today. Obviously, most of it was very expected, but we knew Ryan. We talked about Ryan Kirkering the last time. We talked about Taijuan a little bit last time, but we didn't know. There may have been reports out. At least we didn't really talk about Taijuan going on the 15-day injured list. But you had a number of guys who are on the IL to start the year, and that forces now Brogdon, Ortiz, and Marte onto the roster. Those are the obvious choices, but I'm kind of curious about Taijuan now and where this is going to progress from here. So I think he threw from 120 feet today. I didn't hear anything about it, but that was reportedly the plan. If all went well the past couple of days, because I think he threw yesterday a little bit too. If all went well the past couple of days, he's supposed to throw a bullpen Saturday, I think. And it's not supposed to be a long-term thing. But now, Drew, you have to wonder, after last year, the velocity was down because of some hamstring thing. There was something going on there the whole year in the first inning. And he would eventually get his velocity up later in the games. But then you come into spring, his first start, the velo is low, but he was mixing pitches well. And, it's his first start. And then the most recent start, it's still 88, 91, 92. So I'm curious where this goes now at this point, because you do have Turnbull, who I think Turnbull really, he is just there to be a placeholder right now for Walker and or Abel. But I am curious what happens if there's something more serious with Taijuan or something more serious develops, because there is that possibility in my mind. I'm not a doctor. I'm not reporting anything, but that to me is a possibility. And at that point, I still feel good. You probably have Abel eventually replacing Turnbull in that rotation, but I don't know. I'm just kind of curious how that's going to transpire the rest of the year, because that's obviously a storyline we've been watching since the start of spring.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat you are as far as that goes. Like, I feel like if there's something more serious with Taijuan where he ends up, needing surgery or whatever it may be, and he misses some time, I think Turnbull is going to stay in the rotation. And if he struggles, then obviously I think Abel's probably your first guy up out of the minor leagues. I don't believe Mercado is getting stretched out as a starter. He's going to be a reliever full time. But, yeah. I mean, if times get super desperate, you could always bring up McGarry and give him a spot start once in a while if they get him stretched out to multiple innings in the bullpen. But, I mean, bullpen games are always an option as well, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not ideal. But, I mean, Turnbull seems like he's going to be able to hold his own, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
And until he shows me otherwise, I would just ride him.
Yeah. And if he doesn't, I honestly think you might even see if they don't think Abel's ready yet. I think if Turnbull was really, really bad, I think what they might do is they might go Colby. I think he's still on the 40-man. Colby Allard. You'd probably go Colby Allard for like 3 innings. Maybe try to see if you can get him to 4 or 5 in certain starts, and then just build off the bullpen out of that. Like have Luis Ortiz pitch off of that too. That would be my guess. But that's just kind of the short-term plan. If anything happens long-term with Taijuan, which you just never know. Because sometimes that's what happens is the arm feels some discomfort. They start throwing again, feels okay. And then some point along, getting stretched out again and throwing again, it starts hurting again. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I just wanted to talk about that in case. I think Turnbull that's why you signed him. He's literally there for this exact scenario. It just happened to happen the first week of the season. So, that's where we are right now. But I would be curious, depending on how Abel develops, if I've always kind of been of the position they could still look to add a 6-man / long-man Lorenzen type of guy at the deadline, or a Noah Syndergaard. Ideally, this time around, though, you're not adding Noah Syndergaard or Michael Lorenzen to start games for you. Just spot start if needed, and then go to the bullpen. Obviously, it'd be ideal to find a guy with versatility is kind of what I'm getting at. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that because, I'm not a doctor, but I am concerned after what's happened the past year and now this spring with Taijuan.
Yeah, and he's had injury history as well. I mean, that was one of the big knocks on him whenever he signed that free agent contract with us. So, I mean, you have every right to be worried about him because, I mean, the velocity thing, that's a huge concern, obviously, as well, because when you're 4 or 5 mile an hour down from your fastball, that's a massive difference to hitters. I mean, that's like going from 95 to 101, like they're totally different pitches at that point. And also when the splitter loses some velocity, it loses a little bit of its touch as well. So that's definitely concerning. I mean, I think the spring Abel showed you that he's right on the cusp of being ready. I mean, if he can keep his command in touch for the first, month of the season and Turnbull ends up struggling, Abel's definitely going to be the guy. I don't think there's really any question about it, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm excited for that too. I'm really curious to see how quickly he tries to force his way up to the big leagues as well, because that's the question at this point. I mean, based off of what we saw. I mean, outside of the Futures game, that was really the only blip he had in spring training, and it was the 1 home run. So
yeah,
I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in that, especially when you're playing other guys who are also not right on the cusp of the show, but are probably good bets to play in the show at some point. So, anything else you wanted to talk about before we start up this season here, Drew, and get underway tomorrow afternoon at 3:05 p.m.?
Nope. I think I'm ready for the sleep I'm gonna get here, and then fast forward to tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I'll be at work until about 2:00 tomorrow, and then I'm gonna go get ready to watch the game. But I mean, I think we're all ready. We're all like antsy at this point. So looks like you got your jersey on. You're more than ready.
Yeah, I was ready. I was ready today. I was definitely itching for it at 3:05. But yeah, I mean, hey, we got to watch some other baseball today to kind of build up to it a little bit more. And like you said in the chat, Drew, in the Discord, now we don't have that Friday off day. We just go right into the series. So that's the upside of it, right? But that being said, guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in. This was a little bit of a shorter opening day Eve pod. But yeah, we started this up in the off season in like December, and it's crazy to be sitting here, Drew, now on the cusp of opening day. And I'm really excited to get this season going on this podcast. And it's already been fun talking Phils with everyone in the Discord. And just to actually have stuff to talk about now, I am excited because it's just, I love talking Phils, and I can talk all day in the Discord with you guys, and I have no problem doing that. It's just, I'm sure we're all ready to actually see some of the results of all the topics we've been talking about for months now. So yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to that. If you guys aren't in the Discord, make sure you go join it. Yeah, if you can't find the link, just comment, let one of us know. We'll drop you the link if you can't find it anywhere. So anything else you want to say, Drew, before we wrap up?
Everybody enjoy their night. Don't let the night drag on too bad, Get some sleep, maybe sleep till 2:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, one more sleep before opening day. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate y'all. Enjoy watching opening day wherever you guys are watching from, and we'll see you guys hopefully post game. Peace.
Yep. Everybody have a good night.